Hello, and welcome everyone to our today's webinar about sustainability production. I'm Alexandra, Experience Marketing Lead here at Pixelz, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. Before we get started, I want to make sure that during the webinar we have an exchange with you. Even though we can't see you on the other side of the screen, we do have some awesome functionality over here to make sure that what we say actually resonates with you or you actually enjoy the conversation that you're hearing. So, to make a test of reaction functionality that we have here, please give me thumbs up if you can hear and see me well. This functionality is located at the bottom of the screen. Okay, awesome. I see some thumbs up coming. I'll take it as a sign that you can hear and see me well and it's all working. And of course, we also have our chat. And I really encourage you to ask any questions that might come up during our conversation. Just fire them away in the chat, and we will address them either as we go, if that aligns with the flow of our discussion, or we will leave some time at the end of the webinar to make sure you get the answers. Because, of course, everything this is for you so that you can get the answers to things that matter to you most. And to get this conversation started in the chat, I have one question to you. And please answer in the chat by typing simple yes or no. The question is, have you started doing something this year? It can be either in a professional life, on personal life, to be more sustainable. And of course, if you'd like to, you can even share what that is. For example, for me personally, I started really looking much more into circular fashion and trying to shop at stores that offer pre-loved clothes and some of the hardly worn items. I also look for the options to compensate carbon footprint for my travels. And a really small thing, I proactively ask the assistants in stores not to give me any paper bags, that I always have a bag with me to avoid that extra waste. Is it enough to be sustainable? Is it enough, such a small thing? Well, I'm glad to say that we have the best person to answer this question today with us. And it's my pleasure to welcome on stage Kati Hall, a sustainability consultant at CreativeZero, who will be here with us today to walk us through the secrets of sustainable production 101. Welcome, Kati.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you. All good.
Yeah, where are you tuning in from?
From Brighton in England.
Brighton, amazing. I have such great memories of.
Not very bright today.
Not very bright. Well,
Or...
it's definitely not bright where I am. So I had to add some color to this doom and gloom of November evening.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Kati, I've done a very short introduction, but I would love you to tell our audience in your own words, what has your journey been to becoming the sustainability consultant and working with CreativeZero and overall focusing on creative industries?
Well, I had a very lucky start. I was working for the Advertising Producers Association in London. They're the trade body and they look after all of the production companies in advertising. So there I met the founder of AdGreen, which is the UK's initiative for sustainable production. And that was kind of my introduction. After I left the APA, I went into post-production and animation, working with the Mill and with Nexus Studios here in London. And then decided, as I was engaging more with AdGreen, delivering their training, that it felt like it was time for me to kind of take that leap. So I did a course in sustainable business management, met Roxy and Tim from CreativeZero, and we've been working together for the last 6 months or a year or so now, actually. So yeah, it's been exciting and learning something new every day. You know, it's a constantly evolving section of the industry. So I feel very lucky.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's great that you've gone kind of more from production side of things to actually working and helping others to to do better and be more environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
And well, that's why we are here today to talk exactly about that. And we promised a very practical and hands on discussion. So I suggest we jump right into it. And my first question to you is let's say there is a studio manager, and the studio manager wants to make their production and the studio overall more sustainable. Where do you even start? Like, how do you audit your existing processes from that sustainability perspective?
The most important thing we've found is you can't manage what you don't measure, right? So finding a calculator, some sort of carbon calculator that will work for you. There's quite a lot out there. There's ILA for events. There's AdGreen for advertising production in the UK and across Europe. There's also the Green Production Guide in America. Um, and then using that tool, using that calculator to figure out where your biggest impact is. So putting in your energy use, putting in your travel, it can do it on spend or distance, measuring lots of different kind of aspects of production. Looking at that, and that gives you the kind of concrete numbers of where you should be focusing your efforts and what the easiest steps will be for you first. So
Yeah.
having that outline, and then that gives you more of a structure for how you can then tackle it.
Yeah. And I really like that you were bringing up the calculators and you even mentioned one for events because me being much more involved into the event production rather than creative production, it is a creative process as well. I've been on a lookout for the opportunity to understand how to measure my events. And honestly, these calculators have been quite overwhelming. And my question to you is like, how to not get scared and how to actually utilize it when you don't have all the answers yet. You don't have all the data when you're just starting out because you haven't been really tracking that. So, any advice on that? And yeah, how to approach that?
Yeah, I think that's the issue all the time with sustainability is that people think if they can't do one thing right, then they shouldn't start and that they've kind of failed before they've even began. It doesn't matter so much in the first go of what data you have or don't have going into a tool. It will most of the time give you a lot of help on what you need to look out for, and that first calculation that you do can be really rough, right? But it's just starting. It's getting that first fit through the door that's then going to lead you to be able to make the change. And you're not going to be able to change everything all in one go. But I think we always feel like, oh, it's a bit feels a bit scary, you know. So yeah, I'd say just start, just do whatever you can do, just do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there is also a little bit of that pressure that you actually have to get it all right. Otherwise, you can't say that you're doing like effort to be more sustainable because it's not enough.
Yeah, exactly. No one's perfect, right? And no project is perfect, no production is perfect ever, but making a start is better than not doing anything at all,
Yeah,
always.
that's true. And I know also that you've prepared a kind of a rough visualization of how the calculator can work for you. And yeah, so just a clue for everybody watching. If you're just listening, have a look at the screen because Katie has actually prepared to show us a bit of a calculator. And Katie, can you share like what sort of calculator that is and why did you choose this one?
Yeah, sure. So this is the AdGreen carbon calculator. It's used for advertising production. AdGreen are based in the UK, but it works across all countries. So it doesn't matter where you are. The carbon factors or your environmental impact is measured depending on your own country or where you shoot or where it takes place. So AdGreen is paid for by the UK by UK brands who want to invest in more sustainable production for essentially what is their marketing, right? So it's by a levy paid by the brands, and it's free at point of use for everyone within the industry. So it's actually a really amazing tool to have come from. It came from TV originally, and then AdGreen have adapted it for advertising. So the original is Albert. If you're working in TV and film, I would recommend Albert. But yeah, AdGreen is a big collective effort from the industry, and it's for the industry as well. So yeah, I just made this very brief, kind of rough test. So the Pixelz TVC. So I said that we're doing some motion and some stills. So we've maybe got 2 key visuals in our stills. We've got 1 shoot day. And as you can see here, it kind of breaks it up into several different areas. The areas that I've put in are non-filming, filming spaces, travel and transport, and materials. So when you're putting it in, it allows you to put in draft ones, and then you can finalize it. So I've said here that we had some pre-production time in an office, but I've also put in this pre-production time in an office that has been powered on renewable energy, which you can tick down at the bottom here. And as you can see, when you compare the two, you're saving loads of environmental impact just by that simple switch. And I put in here the same sort of things. So I put that we're in a studio. You can change it if you're on location. You can change what you're measuring. So I've said we're 1 day in a studio, and the studio is 100 meters squared. It's not on renewables. So that means that it's giving us 0.36 tons of CO2. If we were on renewables, it would be half that, because our electricity would be powered by solar power or wind power, whatever it may be. So you can go in and add in these different types of travel and energy and your catering under your materials. There's lots of different sections, and they give you lots of tips down the side as well. And you can see there, if we have lots of people eating meat on set, so we have maybe 30 meals in the day, and that's 0.086. But if everyone was eating veggie, it would be 0.022. So again, as I said, when you start measuring the things and you start putting them into this sort of calculator, you can see really clearly in front of you the differences and the impact you can have straight away. And that then enables you to start a better conversation with your clients, with your suppliers. You can put these numbers in front of them in black and white and say, here's column A, how we usually do it. We're going to try something different, and it's reduced our impact, by 1 ton or 3 tons or 10 tons.
Yeah, 100%. And I even feel like it can make such a great business case internally if you need to prove why we need to go with this studio rather than that one. Maybe the costs are a little bit different, but look at the impact that we're going to have if we choose this location. Or when people are choosing the options for the meals, you can actually highlight it that by choosing vegetarian option, you are going to save this amount of carbon emissions. I think that's really great, because numbers always tell the best story, I think, when it comes to really benchmarking something or making data informed decisions.
Definitely. And like I said, if you're at that beginning stage of writing a script or writing creative, or you're just doing your budget, you can put it in like your budget, right? Do a really rough estimate, and then you're able to start a better conversation from the very beginning, and then it doesn't feel like such a heavy task, right? Because you already have it in your planning from the get-go. So you're not trying to squeeze in sustainability retrospectively.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. At this point, I would love to ask our audience, and again, just with this thumbs up, maybe show us if you're already using the calculators or maybe tried to implement it for some of your projects. So thumbs up if you have done it. And if you're using reactions, you can set hearts. Okay, the crying smile, yeah, that's exactly. You haven't used it. I can see it. Yeah. I would send one too as well, but I'm really looking forward to changing it starting from the next year. Someone is using AdGreen. Awesome, for a few months. Well, good for you. And we are all joining you soon. Amazing. And We've gone through the calculator, like put in all the data that we have. So what do we do next? How to actually act upon it?
Yeah, of course. I think, like I said, once you've measured it, you know where your heavy hitters are. Usually that's going to be travel or energy, especially if you're shooting abroad, or you have crew that are abroad shooting. Um, so I think with travel, if you're shooting abroad, it's thinking, could you shoot it more locally? If it does have to be abroad because it's a location, so I'm in the UK, and, you're trying to do a summer campaign in November, you're not going to get sunshine on the beach as much as you can cross your fingers. It's not going to happen. So you need to go somewhere sunny. That's okay. You can use a local crew there so that you're not flying your crew over, or people on, maybe you shoot slightly closer to home. So you're not going on a long haul flight, maybe Portugal instead of Cape Town. Thinking about public transport for all of your crew, so people aren't getting taxis or driving. If you are flying long haul, fly economy. You're taking up less space on the plane, so it's much better. Unfortunately, as we all would love to be flying business class everywhere, but you got to put the planet first, right? So yeah, I think there are some things for travel, but if you're shooting closer to home or at home, your energy is going to be your biggest contributor usually. So asking yourself, what is your own studio powered by? Are you on a renewable energy tariff? Can you change? Talking to your suppliers, so your edit house, your post house, are they on renewable energy? You might be the first person to ask them, and that's okay, and you can explain why you're asking them. But you might be the fifth or sixth person, in that month. And the more that we all ask these questions, it's a collective kind of bargaining tool, right? You're making people reconsider, and even go one better than that. If there is a studio that is powered on renewable energy and there's another one that isn't, go with the renewable powered one and tell the other one that you've decided to go with the other because of that decision. That sort of, like I said, that collective bargaining idea where we're all making those slight decisions that tip us in the right direction, right?
Yeah, 100%. I really love that. Like every drop matters really at this point. Everyone has a voice and it counts.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, so you've kind of focused on usually what we say the two heaviest are, the two biggest. And then think about your materials. So if you're building a set, or if you've got lots of costume, are you hiring your costume or your set? Are you using recycled materials? Are you making sure that it doesn't just all get thrown into a skip at the end of the day? Could it be reused or repurposed? And then things like your disposal. So recycling on set, things that we kind of think of as being sustainable. Lots, a lot of focus goes into recycling on set and making sure that we don't have plastic bottles, or single-use plastic, but actually that's such a tiny portion of the footprint usually. So it's still very important because, like you said, every step in the right direction gets us there further. But yeah, it is unfortunately usually the smallest impact overall. So that's why we need to measure. That's why having a tool to calculate in the first place really kind of supports the argument for why you travel or where you travel.
Definitely. Yeah. So just to recap, travel, energy, materials, and also disposal as to what you're doing with all of these materials and trying to increase the lifetime of those and make it local.
Exactly. Yeah. Support local, right? It's what we're always told.
Exactly. Yes. Though it's so fun to travel, but it
Yeah.
comes with the price,
Yeah.
definitely, and not just the monetary one,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And can you recommend some of the must-have practices to adopt at the studio level? Like, may it be an in-house studio of a brand, or it's a studio that works with external customers. So, what are the things that moving into 2023, when sustainability being a trend, I want to say, for like good 7 or 8 years, probably. Like, what is a must have?
Renewable energy, one. If you can change, it's difficult now because of the kind of energy crisis that's happening, so it is harder. So if you can't change that and it's out of your hands, that's okay. Move on to the next one. The next one is, only offering vegetarian catering. So make that a policy. So just don't serve red meat. So only serve chicken, maybe. That reduces your footprint so substantially and really sends a message as a studio that you're taking your sustainability policy seriously. And also, it doesn't have that big an impact generally. It's 1 day or 2 days, and it will usually save you money. Um, have a no single-use plastic policy. Again, quite a vocal policy to have in place. It shows that you're being serious about your sustainability. So encouraging people to bring their own bottles, providing only glasses, or proper kind of crockery and cutlery when you're doing your catering, and having that all set out as a policy, really shout about the things that you are doing. I think people are scared to do that, because they feel like maybe if you're not completely perfect, then people might think you're greenwashing. But actually, being very open that that you're not perfect and that's okay. Here are the things that we're trying to do better. Here's what we're going to focus on in the next 12 months, and keep people updated on that. Use that as a conversation tool for your clients, for your suppliers as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I actually really love that idea of having the policy and being open, vocal, and transparent about it. It's like the building in public trend in a way, because you're also educating others and you're taking them on your journey, sharing the challenges and the wins, and that like makes you more human as well, I guess, and even builds that connection.
Yeah,
And also, it makes you stand for something.
definitely.
And whoever really feels strongly and may be looking for a partner to work with, it will really resonate with them. And you can actually, in the end, drive more business rather than being like very cautious about, oh, yeah, but that's our policy, and potentially like losing some clients. I
Exactly.
definitely love it. And I know that for myself, I've taken quite a lot of notes during our prep call as well, and things as like mental remarks to ensure that we think about it and see how we can implement it into our own production. But as we are nearing the end of this webinar, I wanted to ask you, where can people continue these conversations and continue asking questions? Maybe there are some communities or resources that you can recommend.
Yeah, I think from a production point of view, there's Purpose Disruptors in the UK. They are amazing. They're all from the creative industries, and they've come together and written a fantastic report about the impact of advertising, actually, and of production. There's the Creatives for Climate community as well. They're global. I think they're based in Amsterdam. But again, creatives coming together to use creativity as a force for good. An amazing book I would recommend is How Bad Are Bananas? And a really good podcast is Outrage and Optimism. I can put links to those as well for you.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and for everybody Googling right now, like very fast, we also will include these links into the follow-up email right after we wrap up the webinar. So just be on the lookout for that one coming into your inboxes. Well, that's been amazing, Katie. And we are right on time, but we still have a few extra minutes for any questions that there might be from the audience. So if you got a question, that is the time to post it in the chat. And while some people are already typing, I actually do have one question that has come up quite a lot when I was working with e-commerce companies regarding their delivery processes. And the perception that there was that becoming more sustainable is expensive. And it is much more expensive than kind of continuing the way we have always done. Is it really so?
I think, well, carbon is associated with cost, right? So the more something costs, the more impact it will have, generally in production. I think when people think about renewable energy or when they think about new products, they are usually on the higher end because it's related to lifestyle things, so like cosmetics or organic vegetables and fruit that we buy in the supermarket. Actually, if you're talking about energy or you're talking about electric cars, that sort of thing, you save money further down the line. Things like your lighting, if you're using LED lights instead of tungsten lights, you're using less energy. So your studio bill at the end of the day for your energy use is going to be significantly lower. So I think there are areas in which it can cost more, but that's to do with demand, that's to do with uptake, that's to do with new technology, and that will fall the more we use it. Um, on the whole, I think in business you save because you're using less resources from the outset.
Yeah, and I guess it's like the part of this that upfront investment to transition is a little bit scary. And so you need to look at that long run and the time for you to see the return on investment, basically, and what it will be like in comparison. So it's a kind of long-term game rather than a short-term win.
Yeah, and that's the overarching message of sustainability, right? It's thinking about the long term, what world we're going to be living in 20 and 30 years. That's what we need to be keeping, because business thinks in 3 or 5 years as long term, but we need to be thinking about what we're leaving for everyone that's going to come next, right?
Yes, exactly. Great. And we have one more question. Are you seeing sustainability being a or sales driver yet, or is it still more a nice to have?
Uh, I think there's certainly a lot more research coming out now about kind of consumers and consumer behavior. Havas recently did one, the Meaningful Brands report, and they said that 73% of consumers think that brands must act for good of society and good for planet. And over half think that they're willing to pay more for a brand that actually takes a stand. So I think we are starting to see that shift in consumer behavior and consumer attitudes. At the end of the day, that's what marketing and production and studios are all focused on, right? It's the consumer. It's the reason that we create, mostly. So I think we are starting to see that change. I think companies are starting to listen now to changing consumer behaviors. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess what also helps, and I'm speaking purely from like a consumer perspective, is that sustainable goods and all the products, they kind of get the, I don't want to say stereotype because they are higher quality and they will last longer. And that has an additional sustainability impact that's whatever you purchase may be something for your home or clothes in particular, like it will last longer.
Yeah.
So you kind of save, it may be more expensive, but it will last longer for you. Plus all the benefits for environment, and you kind of feel good about it.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be a
Yeah.
bit more smug when you put your nice coat on, right?
Yeah. Amazing. And we have one more question. Any tips for small in-house studios? Also, any tips on how to onboard on this matter freelance talent and team to be really conscious about it?
Small in-house studios. Yeah, I would say it's the same. No single-use plastic. Try and use more local suppliers. Try and use more LED lighting, if you can. That's going to save you money on your energy as well. And I think being, in terms of having your freelance talent, being really upfront about how you operate as a studio when you're sending them their contract. Have a paragraph in that says we work to be as eco-friendly as possible. We have these practices in place. We appreciate you also trying to bring that into how you work when you work with us. And I think, like I said, being really vocal about it, not being afraid to communicate that to your team, whether they're permanent or freelance coming in. I think you'd be surprised at actually how empowering and how engaging that is for people coming in from the outside. That can really change their perception of you as a studio, and then they go and tell their other freelance friends about how lovely it was working for you and that they really cared. And having that open forum really makes people feel like they're part of the team, right? So engaging with your staff is really beneficial from all points of view.
Yeah. And hopefully they will also tell that eating vegetarian for one day was actually awesome. And it's
Yeah,
really
exactly.
tasty and good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I had a lovely lentil stew and it was fantastic, right?
Exactly. I mean, vegetarian food now can be really, really great.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
and we have a great comment here also from James that, yeah, the sustainability aspects start to influence procurement processes as well, which is great because that means that even larger and larger organizations start to think about it, and it gives extra credit and like extra points when the whole selection process is happening.
Definitely.
Well, it's been amazing, and we've gone slightly over time, but it was a great discussion. And Katie, thank you so much for taking time and joining us and sharing all your wisdom and your expertise. And thank you, everybody, for listening and asking questions and being such an engaged audience. If you want to learn more about sustainability, also, and you want to travel to Copenhagen and offset your travel, of course. Next week, we have our final in person event of the year, Flow Copenhagen, on November 29th. And we will have an amazing panel about sustainability in creative industries there as well, with great representatives of two sustainable brands, Copenhagen Cartel and Alohas. And we'll be lucky and excited to see everybody there. And if not, you can stay tuned for the recordings of the sessions as well as for the recording of this webinar, and share it further with your colleagues, with your friends in the industry, so that we can all do better. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day wherever you are.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.